Hello and welcome to Walker Tea Review. I'm Jason Walker here with a pu'er tea, one of the probably lesser known categories of tea that is available. And pu'ers are often compressed into either a disc or a cake type of shape. Could be called a disc, could be called a cake, or a brick, a rectangular brick type of shape. So I've got a sample here. This has been broken off of a cake, so some of it is compressed into chunks like this, and some of it was loosely broken off as well. So I pulled off a piece here that would fit in my teaspoon fairly well, would have hung over the sides. As it loosens up, it will take up more space. So I'm not fully covering the bottom diameter of my gaiwan this time, but it should after everything has kind of loosened up. I'm adding, my water's been brought to an early boil. I'm adding enough so that a little bit should rest above the rim of the lid. And the thing with a compressed piece like this, and with some pu'ers, you cannot necessarily get the optimal characteristics on the first steep. But I'm going to let this steep a little bit longer to try to loosen this up a little bit more and draw out more of it. So, having said that, introduce this tea, talk about it. This is from ChinaChaDao. This is their Douji, let me make sure I get this right. It's a 2010 DouJiNanShangDou. What it looks like, I'm still checking on this. Nanshang is the way it's described, N-A-N, Nanshangdou. But the Chinese characters appear to be Lan, L-A-N, as in the colored blue, because the ink, the paper, the wrapper has blue coloring on it. You can get 357 grams, which is the full disc cake, for $45.99 on ChinaChaDao's website, $46. A little bit of product or background information. This one was, there's a date there, and so I'm assuming that this is the date that this was pressed into the cake, which the cakes that they're displaying on the product page, June 8th, 2010. Okay, so talk about this tea, give it a shot, give it a run, see how it goes. Starting off here with the dry leaf. I'm going to give this a shake. This is, I should mention also before I forget, this is a sheng pu'er, meaning it is in its more raw, sheng meaning raw or young type of character there, as opposed to a shu that is put through an expedited aging process, I guess is the best way to say that. This one is the type that you can set aside and let it age on its own. You often find, well, I'll talk about that in just a moment as I'm getting some greener notes. Greener meaning things like a hint of Chinese green tea type of notes. So it's going to be slightly a bit of vegetable green there, herby green, maybe a little bit of parsley type of smell. But more on top of that, more so, you get more of a sweet dried hay type of smell. So it's a sweet grass, sweet herby type of smell there. Maybe a bit of a dry straw kind of smell there. Hay, straw, that's the range, the dominant range here. So this is the type that when as it starts off, it's greener. It's a lot of these tend to be a bit more astringent, a bit more bitter, and as they age, they begin to mellow more. Pulling out a flake here, a compressed section here. So you've got lots of leaves. Looking at these leaves, these don't look to be like the young buds. These look to be mid-size leaves. I get a bit of a gold color or a silvery color here and there. So there are needles interspersed. With a pu'er cake, you can have different sizes of leaf compressed together. So you may have some larger, you may have younger needles here. So that you've got the silvery color and the silvery gold fuzzy buds there. And I'm going to, if I had to put a percentage on it, 15% or so is going to be the amount that I'm seeing here as the percentage of needles or compared to other types of leaves. A kind of a duller, mellower, moving from a green-gray over towards a more a darker color. So this indicates that there, it has started along the aging process. It's not necessarily completely young, raw green. So I'm going to set that aside and get now to pouring the liquor here. I'm going to angle my lid over to the side. Looking in, I just wanted to see, yes, this leaf has, that chunk has loosened up, and now I've got a lot of loose leaves floating around in there. Now this is going to be probably stronger, more intense than you may prefer or even suggest, because part of the romance of a pu'er is a steep, pour it off, discover the layers there, repeat multiple times, sometimes 10 or more times, and each time you can unlock different layers of the story. I've kind of pushed that a little bit here and combined some of those by steeping for a longer time here. But I'm going to let that liquor kind of swirl around, set that to the side, and get into these wet leaves here. That sweet, strawy hay smell is still there. Underneath that, there is a sweetness there. There is a sweet fragrance. Someone pointed out to me, someone called this, there's a bit of the old makeup type of smell. There's a bit of that, the cornstarch, the powdery base cover type of the fragrance that can often be put into that kind of makeup. There's a bit of that kind of sweetness here. I would agree with that, okay? So that's not an artificial, that's not a chemical smell that I'm trying to allude to. That is just a fragrance, a sweet, somewhat floral fragrance there. Pulling out a few of these leaf portions rather. In this particular case, I got a leaf here. Fairly delicate. Seems to be relatively easy to tear, so I'm going to press that down. I'm going to pull out some of those leaf bud or younger portions there. There's a one that's got a little tip there. You could tell that was a needle that was growing, starting out. Let me pull out a few more, dig around here. All right, another needle, just to show that there are some needles there. Let me pull out some of the more mature leaves now. Here's a leaf, mostly unfurled. Let's see if I can kind of tease it open just a little bit more. You can see that these are not, with some pu'ers and the leaf grades chosen, you can get some pretty big leaves. These leaves, 2 or 3 inches in length. I mean, you can have larger than that, 4 or 5 inches in some cases. So that's a good size intact leaf. A little bit of some damage on one of the edges there. But for the most part, that's a fairly younger in the sense that it's more delicate, more tender, not one of the tougher, more leathery, older leaves there. Okay, which shows some of the selection ability. It wasn't just a random grab at leaves there. There's some grading that went on here. Setting that aside, I'm going to move on now, talk about this liquor. Give this a swirl. Now again, this is going to be probably deeper, more intense in color than what you may experience if you do a briefer steeping, which I would recommend at first. But here you've got a nice kind of amber, light copper type of color there. Okay, give that a pour. Still those strawy notes, and still some of that kind of powder, makeup powder type of smell coming off here. So that it's a little sweet, it's a little almost floral type of sweet floral fragrance. This particular steep, yes, the astringency has picked up because of the intensity and duration of this steeping. Off-camera steepings that I did that were briefer. When you do a briefer steep, even with boiling or near boiling water, you can still get lower levels of astringency, and you get a nice silken smoothness. Another key for a pu'er is in the aftertaste, a nice warming sweetness that builds up. Some of the old tea masters will tell you if that sweetness, that warming sensation is up higher around the jaw and the back of and the top of the throat, that is inferior compared to that is sunk down, or that flows or coats even further downward. Depends on who you ask, though. Sometimes I get conflicting comments on that. But I'm getting some up here. I'm getting this warmness around my Adam's apple as well. So there's a nice thickness and spread of this warm, sweet, satisfying aftertaste here. So the tastes are still in that sweet area that is still more of a sweet hay, the sweet flowers of sweet clover. Imagine a field of clover. There's still that kind of gentle, warm, summery type of sweetness going on here. So not only does it coat well, it lasts. Still getting a lot of that kind of sweetness there. So it's fairly extended, even off-camera tastings as well. The astringency there that was at first, that falls off quickly compared to the rewards that come after in this aftertaste. The texture doesn't become excessively drying either. It's a nice silken type of coating that's left top of the tongue, sides of the mouth. And this is a tea that was produced, pressed into a cake 2010. It's 2013, end of 2013. There's potential here to age this and get this even smoother. Something that you may want to consider. So, looking at this tea, I gotta say this one's a strong shower as it is, and has potential to go even further with age. So I would give this one, I'm tempted to give this a 92. So I'm going to try to stick with my first reaction there. Say 92, nice components here. Something that $45, $46, maybe a little bit high, but it's something that you can age, get an appreciation of, develop an appreciation of over years, maybe even a nice gift. So come back to Walker Tea Review to find those teas that make good gifts for you to give to those tea lovers in your life and for yourself as well.